Hello, my loves. It's Sonia G with the MoonBanes Monday Night Live. We're on time, on schedule, ahead of schedule, and it's Mercury retrograde. It's like amazing. So let me pin a comment. Hello and welcome. Let me see if I can pin this. It's like amazing. Usually we do this live between like 7 and 8 Mountain Time. Mercury's retrograde and we're starting at 6:30. It's like amazing. Magical things are happening this Mercury retrograde, you guys. Amazing. Thank you guys for joining. So I'm actually going to tell you guys about my awakening story. Let me fix my phone situation really quick. A lot of you had so many questions lately about how my story went and how that went down for me. I hope you can kind of see me. There we go. And so I may slightly be crooked, but I think we're going to work with it. I don't know what's happening with my thing. Hold on. Okay. And sometimes I think that everyone has an awakening story. It's really, I am a Virgo. This is crooked. These are the things that bother the Virgos. Okay, hold on. But sometimes I think that, so many people have an awakening story. Everybody has an awakening story. So then I kind of forget to go into details of, my own, even though I know it's important. I teach you guys teachings that come from it all the time. I just never really tell you the full story because sometimes I think like that's boring. But maybe it's not. It's actually really not. So, okay, let's do this. I'm going to adjust so that we're not crooked. Welcome to the MoonBanes Monday Night Live. This is Sonia G. Tonight we're going to talk about my awakening, my ascension story. So I hope that this is going to be helpful for you guys. We're also going to talk through it through like the cosmic energy because we always talk about that every week. My eyes are already crying. So we will talk about that as well and the things that are coming up. And then just ask me any questions that you have. Lately I was asking you guys if you had questions about the course, the Sacred Chakras Journey course, or if you had any other things to add to the way that I describe myself on a post on Facebook. And I got so many questions about my awakening journey, others that I didn't even have a chance to respond to. So this is why I wanted to do this. So let's get started. Let's talk about the energy first and foremost, because Mercury retrograde is happening right now. And I'm just going to make it short. This Mercury retrograde is about clearing through. Remember how at the end of last year, we cleared through all of our chakras, and instead of the color chakras, we actually got the crystalline light, like diamond chakra pillar, and everything went like white crystalline light inside of us. If you didn't do this process, this is definitely coming up for you. But it happened at the end of last year for everyone. It happened at the beginning of the year for me. It was really strange. And then it kind of happened for the majority of people at the end of the year. And so then I knew how to guide you. This is the reason why things happen earlier for some of us, right? So that we can guide others. So those of you that have gone through it, get ready to guide the next wave of the people because that's just how it goes. That's how it goes. We are all holding each other through processes. So that's important. Now, what's happening is everything that kind of got dusty, like when you have a move, when you have it reorganizing of energy inside, there may have been some things that got like moved, maybe pushed to the side, but not necessarily dealt with. This Mercury retrograde is like, ooh, and we're going back and we're just making sure that all the dusty stuff is like off the shelf. We're making sure that if there's anything else to throw away, we're throwing it away. So it's kind of like a fine-tuning Mercury retrograde, and it's helping us to really upgrade our belief systems so that we are in better relationships with ourselves, in better relationship with others, because we're redefining our own relationship to self with our higher self. And this is why the DNA upgrades are coming in. So it's a huge light download. A lot of people have been receiving the downloads. It goes straight to your spine. It's light. It's like liquid light. It's amazing. So This is the journey of this Mercury retrograde. The way that you are going to work through it depends where you're at on your journey. And so one of the things that I wish I could show you, but it's on my phone. So my awakening journey started a long time ago. Okay, so let's kind of tie into this. So my awakening journey started in 2007. So that's been, oh my God, 13 years, you guys, 13 years. So that's when I went to a thing that was supposed to be about sales. Those of you that know Gary Acevedo in Salt Lake City, it was his course on relationships, but he called it success in relationships and life or something like that. But it had to do something with sales, right? Because basically his concept was that everything about sales has to do with how you relation with people. And so relationships are the basics of all the things. But then in it, he also talked to you about, your relationship with others. At the time, I was invited to this thing by my boyfriend, and he had told me that it was a thing about sales. So anyways, I went there, and all of a sudden there's this little Gary who is now one of my mentors, and I love him to pieces. And those of you guys that have met him, he's short. And all of a sudden he's talking about these things that I've done, like since I was a kid, like grabbing your pillar of light and bringing it down from the crown of your head, running it down through all the way through your feet and sending it down to the earth, right? So grounding with light to the earth. I was like, who is this guy? How does he know that? How is he teaching people how to do that? These are like my secrets, right? So it was just things that I wasn't talking about to anybody, but that I would do. I feel like everybody goes through that phase, right? Where we just kind of do things inside that we don't really talk about. They're like our light secrets. And so I was fascinated because I was like, oh my gosh, if he knows about that, like what else does he know? I registered for his whole shebang of whatever he offered. I went through it all. I learned it all. It was all self-development. But in this container of self-development, I met people that could see energy. I met a Reiki master who then became my teacher, and I became certified in Reiki. I met people that could see auras. I met people that could, read. I met all sorts of healers, and I was like, this world exists, and I'm fully in. I needed to know everything. It was my rabbit hole. So that's when I decided to go deep into it. And that's when I decided to, but I didn't know what to believe. And this is always the scariest part, is that you don't know what to believe, because it's like this whole flood of things that opens up. And mind you, back in the days, it wasn't so much about the internet. Like, these things were not really talked about. It was 13 years ago. Did we have smartphones? I don't even, I'm teasing. But I feel like it was the beginning. It was maybe the beginning of like the iPhones, right? So in any case, it tells you how much things change. So it wasn't like you would Google things or you would find any accurate things of, the sort online. So I had people, but I didn't really jive with them. I knew that they could do things. And because I am generally a stubborn person, if I decide that I am going to do something, this is where my ego actually serves me very well. I was like, well, if they can do it, so can I. So I just have to figure out how. So I started learning through these courses, but then the things that I wasn't grasping through the courses, I figured out how to access by myself. And so I would just sit there and be with myself. And this is something that came easier for me. Because you guys, when I was 15 years old, I moved from Italy. I grew up in a city called Torino in Italy, and that's where my family lives right now. That's why you guys see me going to Italy all the time. And as a little girl, I was always different. I was always just different. And then I knew that at 15 years old, I had to come to the United States. I just felt the call. I had the dreams. I knew it. And my parents were like, you're 15 years old, you don't speak English, you're not going to another country. But I knew that I had to. And so I told them, look, talk to God about it. Let me know what he says. Like, this is the thing between me and God. So I just know that I have to go. And so my parents, being the religious people that they are, they actually and this is another thing, I was raised Catholic and then my parents became LDS. So I had a very discombobulated relationship with religion and God, and I had to like just let it all go and re-question everything. So at a young age, I was questioning who God was and like all these religious things. I was just a different kind of child. And so my parents literally didn't know what to do with me. And so they were like, you know, we said our prayers, we feel like you should go. Here's some money in cash. And they helped me get my visa. They helped me get on a plane. And they basically said, good luck, like, child, you're going to the United States. And I knew I had to be here. So I did. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I didn't speak English. And in those times, I came in high school. And in those times, I learned how to trust myself because I was alone in another world. It was like another country where people, like, the rules were not like my rules, right? I mean, just the streets are not the same. The way people eat is not the same. The clothes people wear, not, I mean, everything is different. And so as a kid, like the way high school functioned absolutely was not the same. So it was really strange. And obviously not speaking English is kind of a problem when you're, you know, a teenager and other kids are not that understanding in high school. So that was a thing that I really had to learn how to trust myself and how to like fend for myself in terms of like survival, in terms of leaning on faith, in terms of knowing if people were like lying to me or not, right? I had to develop my own intuition because I never knew if people were telling the truth. I didn't even speak the language. I had to like really work on reading my like people's energy and like feeling their vibe. If I was invited to somewhere, right? And like some stupid things were going to happen. So in any case, I had to learn how to trust myself, and I developed this relationship with God. Then by the time I was in my 20s, it was like the revolution of everything. I didn't believe anything anymore. Nothing made sense. It was so weird to try and fit into this culture. I finally spoke English. I went to college and I was like, whatever, if I'm going to survive in this country, I'm going to have to be like dumb, like the people that like pretend to be like dumb in college, which this is not an offense on anyone, but I feel like there is a general concept in a lot of schools where it's cool to be the dumb person that, I don't know how to, like the whole airhead thing, right? And it's really not that cool. Knowledge is important. And so I was like, what is going on with these people? Nobody wants to learn. And it was weird. I had a really weird time adjusting. And so I just had to revolutionize everything. So I went through a lot of trials. I was always like fighting to figure out like where to go through. There was a lot of that kind of push energy that I just had to like make it through. I was constantly attacked because I didn't realize the light that I carried inside. And I realized that this happens for a lot of people too. But I was always also very protected. Like I always knew if I had to move, like when I look back on my life, I did some really stupid things too because I didn't know what I was doing. Happens to everybody. And I always knew when I had to leave, when I had to go, when I had to move, right? I learned how to trust my instincts on certain things. I was like, oh my God, I was so protected. Like, how did that happen? So anyways, I had to re-question everything, re-question God, redecide all of these things. So fast forward, now we're at Gary Acevedo's retreats. I meet people, this is in my mid-20s, I meet people that can see things, can do things, right? I'm graduated from college, I'm working, and it's like, holy shit, this world of energy exists. The stuff that I used to say when I was a kid is real. Like, so I started diving deep into that. But then again, here we are. I didn't know who to trust. So I was like, all right, I'm going back to this thing. I'm going back to this. Me and God, we're going to do this. And so I would just sit there by myself and just like in silence and listen and ask and ask and ask and listen and listen and listen. And when you have to learn to speak a new language, I think you also develop more patience that way. Which I had to learn that. And so I think I was just more open to being patient with it. And a lot of people sometimes are not, right? And so I was just sitting there, I was stubborn, and that's how I got the answers. I received so much information. I would sit there. The longest I've ever meditated was for 6 hours straight in front of my mirror. Just me and myself. I got to know a lot of things that time. I went through like past lives in Egypt. I saw like all sorts of things, all sorts of knowledge came through. And the reason why I was staring at myself in the mirror is because I wanted to see my own aura. And so I put the mirror in a place where I had a white wall behind me, and finally I could see my own aura. I was like, yes. It took 6 hours, you guys, 6 hours. But the point is, I didn't give up. So these are the things that that happened. And that one I was really like, I knew that I had to do it. I'm just going to tell you guys this because it's funny, but like at the same time, I also was like, I wonder if I can levitate. I wonder if I can work with gravity. I think I worked on it for like 2 hours and I was like, that's not that important. I don't need to be like levitating. But you guys know how we get those dreams where you fly in your dreams? I was like, maybe I can actually do that in real life. Like if people can see aura, maybe people can levitate. So I tried for 2 hours and then I decided that was not my moment. So I let that one go. But yeah, it was, and that's how it started. It started with seeing light, and then I started wanting to understand who was around me and angels and the guidance that I had received. I wanted to put information to it. I wanted to put names to it. I wanted to meet God. Like so many times I was like, I need to meet you. Like we need to kind of like sync up. I need to understand like how this is working. And so I would run through my chakra pillar and go and push myself to heavens. And I would just sit there and like breathe and breathe and breathe. And I knew nothing about breath work at this point, but I would just figure out how to go, right? And then at one point I was like intercepted by angels, and they were like, you can't do this. This was back in the days where you couldn't. It was, and still now, this is why I'm so always careful when I take you guys on astral journeys and astral traveling. I'm always careful that we have protection, that we travel with like precautions. Like there's always a structure that's holding us in light, because I got big lectures about that from my angels and my guides teams about traveling with light. And so I would always have to wait for escorts, for archangel, for my angels that come to my sides to take me. And then I would go and I would visit amazing things. And so it got to the point where I was doing this so often that then, because we're human, right? And then so I would go and I would talk to creator of all that is, and I would see things. And I saw so many amazing things in like the heavens, the cities of gold in the heavens. Like I just started exploring. I was just out of my body, boom, and I was going. And sometimes I would do it for too long. And so then when I would come back inside of my physical body, I would be sick. Sometimes I would puke because the physical body doesn't do well if your spirit is gone for that long, right? So I had to but this was all trial and error, and I didn't know. And at the time I figured out that depending on what food I was having before, it was easier for me to eject out of my body and go, right? And so I had learned to do all the protection for my physical body so that then I could go. This is not necessary anymore, you guys. We don't have to do that. That whole thing changed in 2012, where now we can be here and we can project. We don't have to do the astral travel in the effect that you leave your body and go. We actually just project now, but we're conscious here and we're conscious there. So we don't have to go through that. The moment that happened, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I could have never taught you guys the things I teach you now if that wasn't possible. But there was a phase in between where I remember we were grounded. We were not allowed. Randomly enough, I had a neighbor that also he was super into all of the alternative conspiracy theories. I remember that. But he would astral project too. And so some things we paralleled on. And so I was like, did you get grounded too? And he was like, oh my God, I totally did. I'm not allowed to leave my body. I was like, me too. Do you know what's happening? So we would go through these periods where we weren't allowed because there were it's like your light gets seen, right? When your spirit ejects from your body, your light could get tracked. And so you would come back down and it was like mayhem, and you would bring all sorts of shit with you. So I had to learn that the hard way. That's why I know how to clear in all sorts of amazing, beautiful, powerful ways. So, and I teach you guys this stuff. So there was a lot of trial and error. So that was a phase, and that's because the rules were changing. That was right before 2012. That was when the earth was seriously attacked, and I had all sorts of imposters come and pose as angels, pose as my guides. It took me a while. a couple of times I got tricked really, really bad because I was so, it was almost like I became too confident in myself. That's why now I'm like overly careful. And I was just doing these things for me. I was doing these things for me and for my ex-husband at the time. Had all sorts of questions about like his company and the things that he was doing. And so he'd be like, hey, can you check? Should I hire this person? Can you go talk to God about this? Can you go talk to God about that? So it was just like a normal thing in our lives that I would always just be this oracle person in the relationship. And it was crazy, the things I would find out. And I'm like, hey, he's planning on stealing your information. Brian, if you watch this, I'm talking about one of your people. So in any case, it was just crazy. All the things that would come through, they were always accurate. So things went through this phase where I was super in tune. And so I stopped really questioning it. And I got like the second, you don't pay attention. And I got a bunch of information that was not accurate. And then that's when it was a blessing too, because I realized that whenever entities present themselves, like sorcerers, present themselves in a different way, that's when I learned to ask the question 3 times. And this is one of those things that I teach you guys all the time. If you ask someone 3 times in light, in spirit, if they're the highest truth in light and serving the divine plan, on the 3rd time they have to answer accurately. So this time I learned how to like vanquish things. I learned how to clear things. I learned how to get people out. But I also learned that I didn't need to, that fear didn't do me any good, right? It's almost like from that day on, sometimes I would have all sorts of, because when your 3rd eye opens at first, back in the days too, I didn't really know how to regulate things. And so you would see all sorts of demonic figures and like whatever not. And I was like, what is going on? Why is happening? Why am I seeing this? Sorry, I have tea over here. And it wasn't pleasant. But then I realized, I was like, okay, if I don't engage, if this is not the energy, like I would just see too much. And so I kind of had to like turn things down. Or I would see things in people. And so I would just be like, okay, this is not for me. Like you can just keep doing your job. I'm going to go do my thing over here. Right. So it was interesting for me to realize that there's a sense of respect for, everyone's roles. It's just not what I choose to associate with. It's not who I work with. It's not the energy that I want to pull on. It's not what I want to attract. It's not what I want to use, right? So I'm very clear now on who I work with because I navigated all of these planes. I'm like, nope, we're not going here. Those of you in the Sacred Chakras journey, that's why when I take you to Astral Project and we go and meet with our higher self and we go meet with the higher planes, we go straight up. We don't stop at the different chakra points. We don't stop because that's where you have literally like above the highest plane, right? In between here and the highest plane, you have realms where like the lower, like the dark, I want to say like black magic lives, or like sorcery or wizardry, or people that are not pulling from energy that is light, okay? They're maybe pulling from like other dimensional fields, but they're not of the light. And so they live in these planes of existences, which are the mental planes, which happen to be the even planes between our earthly dimension, which is the 3rd dimension, and then all the way through to the 12th dimensional field, which is where we go and meet with our higher self and God, creator of all that is, okay? So I had to do also, side note, for those of you that are like re-questioning everything that you know about God and angels and the universe and all of those kinds of things, it took me work to reframe my connection with God and who God was. For a long time, I would say source. For a long time, I would say creator of all that is. Now I'm comfortable saying whatever because I know who I'm talking to. And so if this is helpful for you, just get really clear on who the being is and how you envision them. And I remember one time I actually had this, I have a very solid relationship with God in terms of, this is back in the days, I would go and I would visualize God as a him, as this, picture that I have seen around because I grew up Christian. And so this is just kind of the thing. And I would just envision. And so finally, somebody had asked me that. Actually, I think it was my ex. And he was like, yeah, it was one night, because he was the one that would always just challenge me, because in our lives we do need people that challenge our belief systems, so that then, you know, we figure things out more so. So anyways, he was like, well, do you think God really looks like that? How is that the right picture of God, right? We would have these conversations. He's like, how is that the right picture of God? Versus like, why doesn't he look like Buddha? Why doesn't he look like a woman? Why doesn't he, you know, whatever? Why is it a he? Why blah, 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 blah? And I was like, good point. Let me go ask him. And so I went, and I wasn't sure what I was going to get. And it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I'll never forget it. But so who appeared to me as a him in that moment, he basically explained, I will show myself to you in the way that it's like your own image projection. It's however you choose to see me. It's however you can receive me. That's the way that I come through, because it is safe, right? It is safe for you. But in that moment, the light of God expanded. And so I was like, well, what do you really look like? And so then the light expanded, and it was like the biggest explosion. And it was like this pure white light energy that is hard to describe. And it just went around like, how can I explain this? If you were in a room filled with like mirrors, like in a circle, but it was so bright and so intense and just light and just love. And I was like, whoa, this is intense. But it was like this presence in the light, and I couldn't see, like, it was just like a feeling. So it was really cool. And in that moment, I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. But I knew that this was the entity, the being, right? The creator that had been giving me all these informations, and I had fact checked a lot of stuff. Like there were things that I would just have no way of knowing, that would come through me and go to other people. Also, for those of you struggling with like family and believing you and where you stand, and you know, and you come into these things, for my parents, when I started doing these things, it was like, oh my God, you're part of a cult. Oh my God, you've lost your mind, right? Like they couldn't understand what any of this energy stuff was. And they started to believe me. It shifted like this. When my grandma passed away, my mom's mom, and all of a sudden I could feel her and I could talk to her and I could find her. Like I felt closer to her as she passed than I was before, because obviously my parents are in Italy, right? So, and so they were in Italy, and they would ask me questions to ask my grandma, because she stuck around. You know how like spirits stick around for a little bit, and then I could also find her after. But in any case, it was really cool because they would just ask for things, and I'd be like, this is what grandma said. And they were like, how would you know that? I'm talking to grandma. So that was how like it became very real for them, because it was very applicable to real life. And through the passing of my grandma, who literally raised me for the first few years of my life, so I was very close to her, I got to witness a lot of things. I got to learn a lot of things, because energetically I was so close to her that I could call her spirit, because that's her energy signature. I would feel her energy signature, and I would just vibrate her spirit in. Like I would just think about her so intensely that she would just have to show up. And that's how I, started calling my grandma. So that's how you can start doing that. And so I would just follow her because it was normal, because it was grandma. It was this like presence that I absolutely knew and loved and adored. And so she would show me, she was like, oh yeah, and this is what I'm doing now. And like, I remember I was like, Mom, grandma did not stop. Not even when she went, like, she passed through on the other side. She's always busy. My grandma was one of those grandmas that was always busy, always doing something, always a million miles an hour. I was like, she didn't stop for like 1 second. The moment, and I remember this is what I learned at her funeral, because I could see what was happening in funerals as she was being buried. I could see her spirit ascending, and I could see the angels coming together. I could see like the rest of the family. It was really cool. As we do a ceremony for the earth, there's a ceremony in heaven, and that was the first time that I saw it. That was 2008. So so it was really interesting. And what else do I want to tell you about that time? The moment that I discovered that I could actually find anyone. Like a lot of people that have readings, they ask me to check on other people's energy, right? Like, can you tell me about this person in my life? Or can you tell me about this person? Or can you tell me about this person? And I got better at that with time, but this is how it happened the first time, where I could actually find someone in the cosmos, right? Well, I wouldn't say necessarily in the cosmos, but in a relatively close sphere to where the earth is energetically. I can find them if I can tap into their energy signature. And so when people show me a picture of someone, or I've learned to do it by name now, because of the Akashic records, which makes it a lot easier. But so the first time that though it happened, I was really, really upset with someone. It was another ex, stories of my exes through Ascension, whose twin brother had, I was really pissed. And I'm only telling you this because, not because I want to talk about a tragedy, but because I want to tell you like the level of frustration that I had. His twin brother had shot his girlfriend and then killed himself. And they had left children behind, and it was like it was just like, what in the actual, like, it felt like the Twilight Zone. And I was so pissed because this was like a twin brother, which is like, oh my God, right? And we had just helped him through so much stuff. So long story short, I was so pissed. And then a part of me was pissed at myself because, so this is context for it. In the moment that he had called me to tell me, I was on a work call on the other line, and I was like, hey babe, can I call you right back? I'm just on the phone for work. Like, I had no idea. So I hung up on him and I called him back 30 minutes later, and he's like, this is what just happened. And I was like, oh my God. And I was just on a work call. So when you like feel even worse for your own thing. So I was like ridiculously pissed. I dropped to my knees and I was like, I'm gonna motherfucking come get you. Like, this was the guy that just did that. Like, I felt like I was gonna punch his spirit. I was that pissed. So my spirit shot out of my body and I went to a place because I knew his energetic signature. It was like I chased him and I landed in this sphere. So if any of you have ever had people that do that take their own lives, this is what happens to them. And I didn't know I could do this until this moment. So there was a tragedy and I was so pissed. And then I discovered that I could do this. So keep this in context when things happen in your journeys. But so there's a sphere around the earth where spirits that do things like that, or sometimes spirits that get whose life transitioned really fast, like in a car accident, and they die instantly, and they weren't ready for it. They end up in this like spirit hospital, how do we want to call it? It's like the soothing of the soul place. It's like a sphere all around our earth. It's a layer. And a lot of them, what I could see is they loop the moment of time. Like, they continue to relive that moment and they can't get out of it. Like, they're stuck. They stay in it over and over and over. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is hell. And then the angels explained to me, no, they're just working through. Their psyche has to work through, and they just don't have enough light to get out of it. Some people, that's not to say that people that get in an accident or things happen this fast don't transition. Some of them do, some of them don't. It just depends on the circumstances and how they know, right? And how people know how to go for light and all of that. But people that tend to pass through in like dark moments, then they have to be healed before they can sustain higher levels of light. So their spirits go through this part where they get like held by the angels. They were literally like, there's like big cribs for like adults is the best way I can explain it, but it's all light. And there's angels that just keep on infusing with light, soothing, loving. And I imagine that for a lot of us, it's the same thing that happens literally at night here. We just don't really realize the extent of help that we have from the other side when we're like going through those dark nights of the soul and stuff. But anyways, this is what happened. And of course I couldn't talk to him. And I realized this is what was happening with him. And it took 3 days before he broke the loop. And then, because I kept checking because I was so upset and I was trying to understand. Sometimes like our human mind has a really hard time understanding, And then once things unraveled, the true story of what had happened is he had gotten way too many drinks in him, and something just took him over. So be careful with the drinking thing. I learned a big solid lesson. Not that drinking is ever a good idea, but they used to call liquors spirits, because literally what happens when you drink to the point where you're drunk and you black out because your body can't handle your spirit can't handle staying in the vibration of your physical body, because it's so dense, it's so bad that your spirit leaves, and so other entities can take over in your physical body, and then you do crazy things. That's why a lot of people, they black out, and then the next day they check their phones, they're like, oh my God, what happened last night? Wasn't you. Just so you know, you were not driving, right? So those kinds of moments. And so that's what had happened to him. And the thing is, these entities, these discarnate entities, I've learned since, that when they take it over in the body, they're so excited that they want to feel something so crazy, because they don't have a body. So they're really excited to be inside a body, and they're very destructive entities. And so they usually just do really things that hurt the physical body. That's why you see people possessed, they bang themselves against the wall type thing. I'm not saying let's go this far in this conversation, but I'm saying this is why it's usually violent kind of things, because they just are oh my God, I have a physical body, I can do physical things, and so they go crazy like that. So that's a thing that happened. So spirits taking over drunk people, that is absolutely terrifying. Yeah, that happens. I knew that was a comment I had to go through. So that is a thing that happens when you get to the point. It usually happens it's hard to say. This is why I feel Annie, you're here in Utah. I always use this example. So people in Utah know the LDS Church. The LDS Church tells people not to drink alcohol at all whatsoever. They also say not to drink coffee. And I've always made sense of it, because I was people don't really know how to drink in moderation. People don't really know what moderation is for them. People don't know what it's like to just, let's have a glass of wine and enjoy it with a meal. A lot of people just go for drunk. And that's where you have to know where your line is. I feel this life is about getting to know where your lines are, right? So, but there's a point. Everybody that, if you've tried, and I think a lot of people have had that moment where it's just, there's a point of no return. And in that moment, you're not driving. Your aura literally cracks. So that's a thing that happens. So just be careful. And don't do stupid things. It's just not worth it. This is so not what this conversation was going to be about. But anyways, that does not mean for me, 2 glasses of wine are great. Do I drink 2 glasses of wine all the time? No. But do I, on occasions? Yes, totally. You just have to know how to work through yourself. Just any other substance. Just and I'm going to go here, people that do have ayahuasca journeys or any kind of hallucinogen journeys, and they don't know what the hell is about to hit them, and then they have these crazy experiences because they haven't dealt with things. It's just, you don't know, because you don't know, you're not in control, you have a substance. And so that's why it's good to have somebody that's taking care of you, where they're, when there's a shaman, when there's somebody holding the energy for the thing, not just let's pop some pills and hey, let's go on and travel. Not a good idea, because you don't know how the thing is going to hit you, and you don't know how to handle it. I was actually having this conversation with one of my students from the Sacred Chakras Journey course, and she was telling me that she had recently tried something, I think it was psilocybin or something, and she said, I was so thankful that I had all of the mental framework training of all of the things that happen in the higher fields of consciousness, and how to organize myself energetically, because then when you had the substance inside, then I knew what to do and I knew how to handle it. And it was a much smoother ride than I saw a lot of people having. My ride was positive, a lot of other people's was not. That's the difference, right? So when you kind of know what to do. So it's really, the bottom line of it all is getting to know yourself, which goes back to meditation, which goes back to taking time to being with yourself, self-reflection, self-journeying, self-understanding. So I hope this makes sense. So Yeah, okay. I'm glad you guys know your limits. Good. Okay. So, that was the story. And then you guys, once I felt I'm trying to think of what happened, like to finish the story. So, but basically I figured out I had these like superpowers, let's call them superpowers. So I started doing this work kind of on the side. It was like, I was like a closet healer while I was, corporate America, traveling, doing the things. I've always done like different, business development jobs for corporate firms, and like I worked a lot in corporate America, and so it's not like you really have a whole lot of time, but on the side people are always like, hey, can you like do some of your magic shit on my back, like, or can you tell me this, can you read some cards for me? So it was always helpful to have these gifts. That's why I was always good with client relations and people, like all of these gifts help me in other ways. But then at one point basically it was like, hey, you're done. Things are changing around. Like after 2012, a lot of things changed, and we started being able to astral project. We started being able to do a lot of other things. Our light was streaming down. 5D frequencies were starting to ground on Earth. They were coming in strong, middle of the way. They fully anchored, I think it was like 2 years ago. So it took a while, but basically it was like, you're getting called. Like you are, like your days in corporate America are counted. So, and I pushed it and I pushed it and I pushed it and I wasn't listening. So finally, my body tapped out because I wasn't listening. And I was in bed with fibromyalgia for 9 months, and I still didn't understand it. I was still with my computer in bed for 9 months. It was weird. So like my whole body was like, you are done and you are offline. This is not what you're meant to be doing. I still didn't understand it. And so literally all the sorts of things happen, because this is what happens when you don't understand it. Everything will fall away. The universe will make it all go away. So I lost, I had to like separate with my business partner. Things were not working, like with the business and the things that were happening, or lawsuits. Like it was crazy. Everything went to hell real quick. I was meant to be out of there. And so that was done. Then I went on my own. I started my own marketing and consulting. And then I lost my clients. I remember my marriage went, like we decided to get, like everything happened like in one shot. And I was like, all right, I'm listening. New house, new job, like new everything. I'm like, we're starting again. I feel like I'm naked. What's up, right? And so when you don't listen, those are things that happen. So, before that, and then it didn't really go, it took, like I still was in the same place for like a year. I want to say, because that was 2017. When that happened, it was 2017. And then something went on inside of me and it was like, oh my gosh, you're turned on. Like I felt it. Like I felt that something was on inside of me. And that's when I started MoonBanes and I started doing meditations. I was like, I need to start doing something. Like something is calling me. So I got certified for meditation. And in the meantime, you guys, I was a life coach. I studied Gestalt therapy. So I studied all of these alternative like avid studies of like NLP and like theta and like all these things to understand what I was doing, because I wanted to understand the scientific basis behind the things that I was doing. So I was studying all these things. I was practicing. I actually had some private clients that were literally like my corporate America world clients that would get to know me, and they'd be like, oh, can you do some voodoo on me, or whatever they would call it. And so that was happening on this side, but it wasn't, like my real thing. So, and I did like life coaching, but I didn't love it the way that the world was presenting me life coaching. It wasn't like my jam. Which is why now I do what I call soul alignment sessions, because we go into like the higher realms. I'm just not meant to work with things that have to do with like the earth realms. I'm just better this way. This is where my calling is. This is where my job is. So anyways, I had to smack my head against the wall a few times to really figure it out, because I was like, you want me to teach people how to astral travel? What? Like, you want me to tell people about all of these secret things that are like, everyone's gonna think I'm crazy. Like, you want me to tell people, like, in first grade, you guys, I got busted for telling people I was from another planet. Like, I got called to the principal's office. I had people convinced, clearly, kids understand these things, that I was from another planet, and the full descriptions of things. And so I'm like, really, are we going here again? I'm like, I'm gonna have to tell people about these things where I'm from another planet, and people are gonna be like, oh my God. I'm like, I don't think I can handle this. Like, I'm in my 30s. So, but yeah, that's when I put the course together, the Sacred Chakras Journey, and it was like, here it goes, full out, right? This is like all of these things that I've been doing for the past, 10 years at that point, from 2007 to 2017 when I launched that course for the first time. All of the things that I had learned, the teachings of the things to do, of the things not to do, of how the brain works, of how belief systems work, of how we need to clear the wounds from our mom and our dad, and like all these things, and how the angels escort us up, and how to not get stuck in the astral planes, and how to decode the messages that come through, how to know if you're working with positive beings or negative beings, like all those things. I put them all in the course, and I was so freaked out of my mind, and that was the Sacred Chakras Journey, which, by the way, right now, that's the course that's 50% off, and that ends tonight. So if you haven't figured these things, all of these things that I've talked about, that's all really organized in a course that I called the Sacred Chakras Journey. And I added a lot of knowledge since, because since then we've done a lot. It goes beyond that. So it goes into DNA activations, it goes into mastery activations, it goes into working with the Syrian councils. This is also, that off-planet knowledge. So working with the Akashic records with the Syrian council, we went to the moon, we went to Sirius, we went to Venus, now we've gone to Mercury. So there's like off planets. I took everybody to their home planets too, so you get to find out where your soul star energy is from. So it's amazing. It's like the thing that takes you to that feeling where you're like, oh my gosh, I can breathe, I'm finally home. It's like, it feels like oxygen when you discover that. And I realized that that's the connection that I was pulling on the whole time. I just didn't know where I was going, but I had found it. And I used to travel all the time. When I was a kid, I used to like go on all sorts of like spaceship rides, and I have these crazy memories, like, and I have, those of you that have done astral travel journeys with me, I have the cosmos slightly mapped out. Like, I've traveled up there enough to where I'm like, okay, now we're going to the left, now we're going to the right. Like, there are ways to go. There are cities, there are things, like there are structures, right? There's libraries, there's connections. And so it's very interesting. But once you do it enough times, it's kind of like when you move to a new city, you get to know the city. So that is all the things I teach you in that course. So go and look at it. I added payment options last night because that course is like, oh my gosh. And I realized it came to me like after all the changes that happened since the end of last year with the 10, 10, 11, 11, 12, 12 gateways and the 12th dimensional frequencies hitting planet Earth and staying, we're starting a whole new era on Earth. This is like that next chapter from 2012. So I was like, holy shit, everybody has to know the stuff that I put in the Sacred Chakras Journey. Like, it's almost like this is your like 101 knowledge. So with that, the next course, it's all about multidimensionality, is coming out. I am like hoping that I can hold it. I really wanted to launch it and tell you guys about it on 2/22. I don't know. I may have like a sneak preview before. I thought it was a really cool date on 2/22/2020. Just the numbers. 2 is a very sacred number about like holding the frequency of faith and still going for it, right? And the 0 is an infinite number, and it's reset, and it's infinity, and it's completion. So I wanted to birth it on that day, but I may give you a preview. So it's really, really cool. Those are the next level teachings that are coming in. So if you've already learned all of the things that I've taught you, basically I learned through 2017, the rest of it, everything that the Syrians have taught me, that I've integrated all of the light knowledge and I was taught, literally, you guys, I spent the last, well, actually it's a daily practice. So for almost 4 years now, 3 years solid, I wake up every day, I go roll out, okay, I have a sequence of things I do in the morning, and then I go and stand in front of my mirror, which I often share here on Instagram, and I get connected. I connect to my higher self, and then I wait. And now it happens very fast. This process used to take me like 2 hours. Now I can be there like this. But I get in connection with my higher self, and boom, I'm where I need to be. And I work with my higher self, and we go to different places in the cosmos, and teachings come in. But I basically go in, I connect to the 5th, now 12th dimensional grid. So I do all of my connection work. I run my light, and then my people show up, and then we go places, and I receive teachings every day. I have most every day. Sometimes they just show me things, or sometimes like I have to sync up things, but sometimes I go through, I have an audio journal, and I put, titles of it, and so that I can go back through and, and some of this stuff I was like you scroll through, and it's like, receive scrolls of light, called on my spaceship, talk to the council. Like, it is insane. It's like you could go through my journal and, receive codes for this, receive that. Like, it's insane. I should do like a little boomerang thing or something, like a video to show you guys on my phone. Like, it's amazing. And sometimes I just laugh, and I'm like, this is really my life. But these are the teachings, and we can't deny that these things are happening. And somehow these are things that make us feel sane, right? So actually going in and downloading this information, understanding who we are as infinite eternal beings, and doing these light practices, and understanding how to integrate light in our bodies so that we can birth our soul, we can really birth our light body through. That's the stuff, right? That's the stuff that we came for. That's the ascension stuff that we came for. So the new level of stuff is coming out on 2/22. But if you have not gone through, like if what I've been saying resonates with you, and if you have not gone through the Sacred Chakras Journey course, that's where you want to start. Where you start understanding how to balance and flow through all of your chakras, and how to work with angels, to work through all of your things. It also takes you through the astrology. It takes you through where you're from. So it's really cool. You can get it on my website at moonbabetribe.com, and then click on Sacred Chakras Journey. So let's see. Claritha, you didn't seem freaked out with Sacred Chakras Journey. Totally natural. No, it was... I love you. Thank you. The part where I wrote down my manual of what I taught you guys and the things I was going to say, that part freaked me out. The part freaked me out that I was like, this is what I'm really going to teach people. And it was when I put it online, like when I actually had a picture of me, when the modules were actually publicly on my website, I was like, holy shit, I'm taking people here and here. That part freaked me out. By the time we started the course, and I think the first time we started it, it was like, I think I had like 30 of you like register for it that first time when we did it live together. It was so, I knew, like the moment we had our first call, I knew this was like my soul family. I was like, this is exactly, and I was very intentional about the people that I wanted to connect to. This is my soul family. I was very clear. And so even though it freaked me out, right? So we do the things with the fear. I was like, okay, these are the people. These are the souls. These are the souls I must have come here to teach particular things to particular souls. And if this has to come through me, then show me the people, right? Like show me, like send me, what I came for. Like I will show up, and I need the right people to show up, because otherwise like these teachings can be wasted on like people that are not, meant for them. And so that's the first time that I realized that the Sacred Chakras Journey, it's like, it has an energy that it calls you. And so you really feel like, oh my gosh, this is like, you recognize it like a soul family. Like this is how I need to be learning things, and this is how I need to like, go through and be like supported through this process. But yeah, so it became very clear to me right at the very, beginning, and I was like, and I knew. And so then it was really cool, and I loved every second of it. But it was the part of putting it together. And it happens every time. Every time I'm about to birth any kind of new level of knowledge, like the stuff that I'm about to put out, that I'm typing up on my website, right? It's not out yet. But the things that I'm putting together and the manual that I'm putting together, I'm like, we're really going here, aren't we? I'm like, all right, we're doing this. So every time it freaks me out because it goes from just practices that I've been working on for myself to, to you guys, to the world, from my perspective. And so it's like, it's like these sacred things that I get to share. And it's not as freaky anymore because I know that it goes to my soul family. But yeah, I remember when that happened. It was crazy, but I love it, and now when people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, I'm the queen of the astral planes. How are you? I know. That's why I was laughing so hard about that post that I did on the Facebook group the other day. So yeah, it would be awesome to discover what star system you're from. And so that's the thing that we do in this course. There's literally, I call them meditation, but they're astral projections where we go to the different, and you find out. And that feeling, when you figure out where you're from, when you're a starseed, when you're a light worker, and you grow up with this knowingness that you are different, that something is different about you, right? You view the world differently. You just have different feelings than other people. You're probably an empath. You feel the world. You don't understand why the world is so hard. This is a general, more general thing, but I've learned that a lot of people know inside that you're different. Like I always grew up and I was like, something is wrong here. Like I'm not, like this is like not, it's like you realize you're like, this is not my world. This is like weird. But you just have this feeling that you're inside, that you're special, but it makes you weird. But you don't really know how to like show it. And so it just, it's kind of like this different feeling when you find out the energy of your home planet. And when your people like connect with you, it's like the most expansive, supportive love. Like it's so hard for me to put into words, but like I have chills all over my body just like trying to explain it to you. It's just like, I can breathe. And like that feeling, that void that you have felt inside, as a starseeds, we all have this, and a lot of light workers have this. Like you feel this void that you don't really know how to like connect, and it's like your higher self connection from your soul star, what I call your soul star. So the star planet where your soul originated from, that has a vibration. It has a pulse to it. That energy is like better than any drug. Not that we want to compare it to a drug, but it's like, that is the thing that will soothe your soul. That is the thing that will make everything better. When you learn how to draw light from there, that's how you can heal things. Everything becomes okay. Like it's like you're plugged in, it's like your power source is on. It's just like, it's amazing. It's the most soothing feeling in your heart. So yeah. So that's why I was like, those are things that give me the courage. It's like people need to know how to do these things. The fact that I can do this stuff, the fact that, I'm capable of doing it and I can get through certain things in life. Like if I'm going through this, then other people may be stuck in this process, but have not figured out this other stuff because they don't have these other gifts, or they haven't figured out how to activate them yet. And so that's the part that gives me the courage. It's like, what if I was stuck here and I didn't know? And that's gonna make me cry. But there were so many times I was like, how do I do this? And I wish I would have had someone to show me, like, this is what you do, this is where you go. And I was always so scared, but I figured it out. And so that's the stuff. Whenever I feel like, oh my God, am I really going to like share this information with people? Then I get taken back to those moments. And if I don't remember, those moments come up where I get tested again. And it's like, yeah, that's that feeling. That's the feeling where, oh my God, I wish someone could just show me how to do this. And I didn't have to work so hard to figure this part out, or I didn't have to hit my head against the wall so many times. And so that's when I know that I have to share it, because, do unto others. Like I can't keep it a secret. I can't keep it inside. If there is something that can help propel, people forward, and it could teach you how to like do these things. So yeah, there you go. That's why I do things. So now, so, Yeah. Oh, hi, you guys. Thank you for the love. Yes, thanks for having my moment with me. Thank you for all the hearts and all the love. Yes. So that's my why. Now you guys know. All right, we're getting cut off. 8 seconds left. I love you guys. I hope this is helpful. I'll see you next time.